This happened about 4 years ago. Maybe 200 people spread across open cubicle office. You would have seen it, most of the typical Bangalore office. And it must have been around 3 p.m., right after lunch. You know, one of those times after lunch when people are still shaking off their heavy lunch. Maybe they had a lot of biryani and everything is kind of slow, silent. Everybody's on their own, doing their thing. Some people were in a meeting, some were on calls, the usual corporate hum. And then someone just started shouting. It was so loud, it cut through everything. The kind of shout that makes your head snap up without thinking and looking in the direction where the yelling is coming from. I was quite far away from where this was happening, but I could hear, and someone I know was standing much closer to where it happened. So I got a lot of details of what was happening. And what he saw was a very senior manager, director level, absolutely losing it on one of his team members. A full on red faced, voice shaking meltdown that this manager was having in front of everyone. The employee who was getting all of this was trying to explain something, but the manager just wasn't listening. He was just shouting, yelling. After a few minutes, HR showed up. They escorted both of them to a meeting room. They closed the door, and then the floor went quiet again. People looked at each other, one of those what just happened kind of look, and then they went back to their screens. But you know what stuck with me that day? It wasn't the manager's anger, it was what happened next. Before I go to that, if that happened to you tomorrow, if you got humiliated like that in front of, say, 200 people, your entire team, would you walk in the next day? Would you just come back? Take a moment, pause the video if you need to. What's your honest answer? Because that answer tells you everything you need to know about why you're still in the job that's killing you. Here's what everyone says: I can't leave. I have commitments. I have bills to pay. I have EMI. I have a family. I have responsibilities. And that's partially true. But here's what I've seen after years in leadership roles, looking at payroll sheets, talking to people in every tax bracket. I've seen someone earning 6 lakhs a year, unable to leave a toxic job. I've seen someone earning 25 lakhs, unable to leave. I've seen someone earning 75 lakhs, unable to leave. The salary changes every year, but then that fear stays the same. According to LinkedIn research from February 2026, 58% of Indians quit job because of toxic workplace culture. Only 20% quit for better salary. Let the number sink in. 58 to 20. The gap is massive, and it's telling us something we don't want to hear. The trap is not money. It's not the EMI. The trap is dependency. And the dependency comes in different form than what you actually think. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking it's financial dependency. There is financial dependency, yes, but there is something scarier that we fail to understand. And I call it the identity dependency. I tell you that because I have lived it. I left the corporate without really much detailed planning. I didn't have a job in hand when I left the corporate. I just wanted to get out of there and do something new, right? So after a while, I realized that I don't have a company, I don't have a title, no salary. Financially, I was fine. My family was fine. I had no pressure to go back to work for money, but I was obsessed, completely obsessed with getting back into a corporate job for a while when doubt starts to creep in whether I'll be able to do something with this business idea of wanting to be a coach. Something absolutely new to me. I had no idea how to turn this passion into a business. So there was doubts every morning, entire days. I would sit and apply for jobs, even though that's not something that I want to do. My idea of quitting corporate was to start something new by myself. So I was on Naukri.com, LinkedIn. I did everything to get a job. I knew every job posting by heart. I could tell you which one were 2 days old, which ones were a month old. It was pathological, to be honest. And you know what the scary part was? It wasn't about money, it wasn't about hunger or survival. It was about something else entirely. When someone asked me, maybe a family member, a friend, or at a gathering, what do you do? I actually felt ashamed, genuinely ashamed. Should I say I was managing life at home, taking care of things, trying to build a business from the scratch? The thing is, none of that signals value to me at the time, right? It didn't feel like I was using my skills. I felt like I was wasting my time experimenting, like I was the most useless person on earth. So I would try to avoid any social gathering. That's identity dependency. It tells you that if you don't have the title, if you don't have the company badge, then you are nothing. Your worth is not inside you, the worth is on that office nameplate. And here's the thing, I understand people, right? I've been a people leader for a long time. I understand systems. I've seen behind the scenes of how a corporate life is, but I still fell for it. I still felt the shame. I could understand that it was happening, but there's like it was like I couldn't do much about it. So I'm not judging that person who might get humiliated tomorrow and come back the next day anyway, because I know exactly what's keeping him there, right? So you walk into a company as an employee, you earn a salary, and that's the deal, right? So you work, you earn a salary, but something happens over time. It creeps up on you quietly without you actually noticing it. You stop being an employee, you become the manager, and then the team leader, the regional head, the director, right? You just keep climbing up the ladder. You walk into a meeting and people know who you are. They know you by your name. You may not know them, but they know you. You don't have to introduce yourself anymore, right? Most of the people that have been around you, they know you even if you don't know them. People ask for your approval before decisions are made. Nothing moves without you or your sign off, right? And year after year, that identity becomes so familiar that you stop questioning it. It starts to feel like that's who you are, like it's a part of you. But the truth is that it is all borrowed, right? Your designation is borrowed, your authority is borrowed, your status is borrowed. And these things you borrowed starts to feel permanent for a time being. Well, actually, as long as you stick to that job, you will feel it's permanent until someone asks them back from you. That's why layoffs feel like betrayal. Even when companies give generous severance packages, even when it is technically an at will arrangement, it's a mutual arrangement in some sense, which means either party can leave anytime. That's what the agreement was from the beginning, right? It wasn't a government job where there was a guarantee to the job. You knew you could get laid off anytime. So people feel devastated. They feel cheated. They feel like someone stole from them because they forgot that that identity that they have been carrying around was a borrowed one. And that's the trap. When your entire sense of who you are depends on one company, that company has the power over you, not just career power, power over your self respect, over your dignity. Now, this applies to even people who have jumped to multiple companies. You're more likely than not seeing similar patterns, right? It doesn't change just simply because you move to different companies. And that's why so many people stay in their toxic jobs. Not because they are weak, not because they don't have options, but because they have forgotten who they really are without that job. So without that job, they don't know what to do with themselves, especially when they've been asked to leave. But I have also met people who aren't trapped as well, who aren't scared, who don't care about layoffs or trends or what the company might do in 6 months. They are rare, but they exist. I've come across a few of them. I'll give you an example. There was this market specialist at the same company where this humiliation happened. Very technical person, brilliant at what he did, not very visible on a corporate visibility ladder, right? Didn't network loudly, just worked, did his thing, and went home, right? One day he resigned, and the manager to whom he was reporting to, he came panicking, right? He went panicking and went to the HR and his manager, and he said, do whatever it takes and please retain him. Do not accept that resignation, is what he said. So they went to the specialist and they asked, what do you want? More money, different role? What are you looking for? Why are you leaving the organization? And his answer was something I'd never heard before until that day, right? He said, my job is taking most of my time, Monday to Friday. I'm exhausted. I don't have time to work on what I actually am passionate about. I make music and I want to create music. I need time for that. So I'm leaving. He wasn't asking for a raise. He didn't want that. And it wasn't a gimmick. He was honest about it. He wasn't asking for a promotion either. And he didn't quote any competitor's offer either. He was just leaving to pursue something that interested him. And you know what? The company did something nobody expected. I didn't expect that, at least. They created a custom policy for him. Believe it or not, he negotiated to work just 3 days a week. The other days, he would just work on his music, his own thing. Of course, he wasn't getting paid as much as he was. There was a little bit of a pay cut, but he was fine with it. I remember thinking that day very vividly, one day I want to reach that level where I put in the condition and the company just says yes. Because policies aren't written in stone, by the way. They get changed all the time. But they only get changed for people who don't even care if the policy changes for them. You see the point? Right? Most career conversations are about climbing higher, bigger title, better company, bigger package, the Bangalore salary, and then the Mumbai salary, and then the Singapore salary. And there's nothing wrong in it. In fact, I would say that's what you should be looking for. Earn as quickly as possible, as much as you can. And then if you can, try and retire early, right? Have that financial security. And there's nothing wrong with wanting any of that. But there is one question underneath all of that we need to ask ourselves. If you don't have a job tomorrow, not eventually, but actually tomorrow, if you think about it, imagine to yourself, right, that if you don't have the job tomorrow, who would you be? It's not about what you earn, how much you earned. Who would you be? Would you know your value? Would your confidence follow you out the door? Or does your confidence live inside that building? Does it live inside the company's brand name? Because real career security is not a number in your bank account. It's not your seniority level. It's not the title either. Real career security is having enough options. I mean, real, tangible options that nobody could ever buy your self respect ever. It's you knowing that you can walk away anytime and you'll be fine. You'll find work, you'll figure it out. That specialist had that. He wasn't scared of anything. And that's why the company had to bend the rules. But that person who came back to his desk the next day after being humiliated, he didn't have that. He had no other place to go. Not financially, well, maybe, but psychologically, absolutely. Right? So he came back because that was the only option he had. That was the only identity he knew. So what did he do the next day after getting shouted at in front of 200 people? He came back right on time, sat at his desk and worked as if nothing happened. And everybody around him pretended like nothing happened. Nobody expected him to come back the next day. I thought he'll quit. Frankly, that's what I thought. I thought something would happen. The company would take action against the manager and the manager would face some consequences. Something or anything, something has to happen, right? That's what I thought. But actually, nothing happened. He just came back, and that image, him sitting at his desk the next morning, the same floor, the same people looking at him, that image is the cost of not building options for yourself. Not because he was weak, not because he was spineless, but because that job was the only identity he knew. He didn't have another option. So answer this for yourself. If something like that happened to you tomorrow, would you be able to leave? If the answer is yes, that's worth knowing. If the answer is no, that's worth knowing as well. Not to feel guilty, not to feel ashamed, but because the answer tells you exactly what your next chapter should be. It shouldn't be another promotion. It shouldn't be another dream company. It shouldn't be climbing higher in your career. That is something that you need to work on. But before that, your next chapter should be building your own identity. In fact, every manager that I've coached, the first thing I work with them on is their identity. And it is not attached to their company, right? An identity is about building the kind of security where nobody can ever touch your self-respect. And that might be the most important project you will ever take on. I did a video on exactly how to start building that step by step, framework by framework. Go watch that next. The link is in the description.